Have you had amazing results in a specific area of your life or business? And do you sometimes feel like if I could just figure out a way to package those skills and give them to other people, I could create a super profitable business that transforms other people's lives and my life in the process? This is exactly why I created this podcast, because I want to show you how I'm building a business around my unique skills of storytelling so that you can imagine how you might be able to do the same thing with your skills. It's also why I'm interviewing as many entrepreneurs as possible so that you can see how many different people from many different industries are monetizing their skills and turning them into super successful businesses. On today's episode, I'm interviewing my friend Jenna Lucer, who is an incredible photographer. Not only does she take stunning photos of high school seniors, but she has cracked the code on the business of photography in her corner of the industry. She has gone from making $10,000 per year as a photographer to multiple six figures in just a couple of years. In this episode, Jenna talks about how she took her skills in photography and turned them into an educational program while running her very busy photography business on the side. This is the kind of information that I was always looking for when I wanted to start my own business. So if you've been thinking about monetizing your skills in some way, this episode is for you. Get cozy, grab your headphones, go for a walk, and let's dive into this conversation with Jenna Lucer. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I
Likewise.
know that my audience is going to get so much out of learning from you. So, can you just start off by telling me, how did you turn your love for photography into a fully fledged business?
Photography for me was almost like an accident. I call it my happy accident. I wasn't really somebody who grew up saying, I really want to be a photographer, but I had somewhat of an interest in videography. And I actually really was inspired by like music videos. I used to watch a lot of VH1 growing up. And I just thought if there was some way where I could just create these visuals that I see in my mind and bring them out into the world, that would be really, really cool. So, I got a camera to help me start to do that. And in college, while studying business and marketing, some of my roommates and teammates were like, hey, you have a nice camera, right? Is there any way we could maybe grab some graduation photos on campus? So, one thing as they do just kind of led to another. And I started getting a couple more people asking me to take their photos. Once I graduated from college, I ended up in a data analytics position, which, it didn't really satisfy that creative side of me that I was realizing that I had. I used to, in that corporate job, walk over to my snack room every once in a while and take a break in there. And there was this big, tall window that overlooked a grocery store, like a shopping center. I would walk over to the window and just look down and see all these people driving around, going in and out of the store. And I'm like, what are you guys doing for a living? How am I in here walking back and forth from my cubicle to this snack room, and you guys are out here getting some groceries at 11:30 a.m. on a Wednesday? Because that's what I want. And that's the freedom that I'm after. That's when I was like super motivated to say, whatever it is, I'm going to try everything in my power to make it work. I asked my job, my full-time corporate job, which is something that I had worked so hard to get, if I could move to part-time work. I lost things like health insurance. I lost a big chunk of my salary, but I just had a gut feeling. I just knew that there was probably something here.
I love this image of you standing there in front of this window eating, being like, I want to be one of those people. When were you standing in that break room versus today? And how did you take it from part time to full time? And when did you know that senior photos was going to be your thing?
I'm one of four kids. Okay. So I have two younger sisters who I love to death. We're like best friends, and I have an older brother as well. And during that season of my life, my youngest sister was in high school, and she told me, hey, we actually need a cheer coach. So I actually took a very part time, low paying gig at a public high school, really just as a way to spend time with my sister. Well, as fate would have it, it actually kind of funneled me right into what would become this amazing business for me, because I was around these high school students every single day. And I love working with this age group. I don't know what it is about the high school senior, like the high school teen, that I just feel so like I can relate to in a way. I can understand what they're going through at that time. And it always motivated me to try to help that group of people like feel very confident in themselves, because that was something that I would struggle with when I was in high school. I had this photography thing, and then I had these students, and I was like, well, just like I did in college, I could probably start offering my services to some of the girls that I coach once they're ready to graduate. And that's exactly what happened. I did that coaching gig for a few years and then ended up getting so busy with those photo shoots that I had to ask myself, do I want to keep going to practice and working with these girls after school, or do I want to leave the coaching job and be able to do more photo shoots during the week? And I ended up doing the latter. It was another kind of one of those things where I guess you could call it a happy accident.
I love that your story plays into this so much. Obviously, there's a mix of coincidence. You know, they were looking for a cheer coach, you had the time, but also you are so successful at it because you're able to connect with your customers on such an emotional level and you know what they actually want.
Mhm.
Do you feel like you're giving them something that no one out there is really giving them in some way?
We talk a lot about like premium pricing and how to build a business that you want, but I always say like a premium price is not just something you charge because you give a really great service. A premium price is also supported by a very thoughtful, very like human to human client experience. So it's not just the service, because the service takes place, between, 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. That's when you're giving them the service. The client experience is really like from the moment that they meet you to the wrap of and the offboarding of their service, and even beyond that is what supports your reputation more than just like your revenue. The revenue is almost like a byproduct of having an experience in place that helps people build your reputation passively. Like it's not so much this like active marketing that you have to go out and do as it is creating these really genuine connections with people. Like I can't go back to high school and redo it, but if I can kind of intercept these girls at this time in their life and just be somebody who's a source of positivity, or plant a seed in them that they may not have ever thought about themselves. That's the way that I see the impact of senior photography, which most people will be like, it is not that deep, right? But it kind of can be.
It always is that deep. When you're serving people, it really, really is. I truly think even if you're selling a dog leash, it really is that deep where you're
Mhm.
really solving somebody's biggest problem. You're making them feel seen. I don't know if I've told you this before, but my mom is a portrait photographer. That was her job when I was born. This was in the 80s and 90s when she would do a wedding on a Saturday and take like 50 rolls of film. You know, it was
What?
so she'd come back with a giant Ziploc bag of rolls, and then we would ship them off, and my job after high school was to go through each photo and match it with the number on the negative and then write the number on the back, and I would do that with all the photos, and then I'd
That's
put them into
crazy.
a giant album and give it to the bride. This was an incredible business for my mom to be able to use her creativity. She did
Oh
babies
yeah.
and brides and everything as well, but there was such a cap on what she was able to do, especially as a single mom with,
Mhm.
the amount of time that she had and
Mhm.
just how much labor went into one single client. So I'm really curious to hear from you in 2025,
Mhm.
what is possible for a photographer today, and what are you teaching people about photography?
What's so interesting about the photography industry is, like you've kind of alluded to, it consistently is evolving and changing in direct correlation with how technology is advancing. So, you know, obviously film used to be everything, and then it goes digital, and now there's mirrorless cameras, and then there's the social media aspect. So there really is a lot to consider, so much so that sometimes these narratives in the photography world come forward where it's like you either have to niche down, or I live in a certain area, so therefore I'm automatically capped. Whereas I look at it like, with social media, with the tools that we have, with ads and things like that, you can write whatever narrative it is that you want. So for me personally, what I'm teaching photographers how to do is take on a brand new identity. And that identity is one of a wealthy photographer, which Some people might hear that and think those two words don't really belong in the same sentence. It's like, oh, if I'm going to be an artist as my career, I just kind of expect that I'm going to be a quote unquote starving artist. And this is just going to be my creative outlet. And sometimes I'll collect, a payment for it. But ultimately, my life is just going to be a struggle because I'm just an artist and I'm creative and I like to just go with the flow. I'm here to teach photographers who do have that little like seed of ambition within them that like, I don't know, I just feel like I could really build this up into something. I could really change my family's life. I could really create generational wealth, in my bloodline. I'm here for those people who are ready to be like, first of all, I take good pictures, like I know my way around a camera, but I just am looking for the mindset and the business skills to really be able to simplify my business, so not overcomplicate it, and scale so that every client that you're working with continues to support that growth of your business.
I am obsessed with the idea of a wealthy photographer for the exact reason that I just told you, which is that my mom would have lived a completely different life. My mom's an incredible photographer. She still takes photos, but she was always working for somebody else and never really had the guidance to be like, okay, let's go start your own studio. Let's figure out how to really turn this into something that can sustain you. And so, like so many people, she chose a more practical job and went back to school and became a nurse.
Mhm.
So, what really inspired you to start the Wealthy Photographer program? Was there a specific aha moment for you?
I love that you shared that because it reminds me of how sometimes it's not that we don't believe that we can do something or we don't think we're talented enough to do something. It's sometimes just that we don't know that it's possible to do. And it's almost like how there was a time when people didn't know that it was humanly possible to break that 4-minute mile record. And so many people failed at breaking that record that scientists were coming forward and just saying it's just not possible for the human body to do that. It wasn't until a guy actually did break it. I think he ran like 3 minute 50 something, seconds, that suddenly a lot more people started to break that record too. Sometimes you just need to know, oh, wait, it actually is something that I can do. So for me, having an aha moment of thinking, I need more people to know about this was probably my third or fourth year of just having this what I would label as a wildly successful, more than I ever thought I could even do or accomplish as a photographer year. And I was actually in a room with these incredible entrepreneurs, is how you and I connected. And there was a lot of people representing, like real estate industries, the health industry, marketing industries. And I was looking around, we were all getting different, awards for sales and things like that. And I'm looking around and I'm just like, where are my photographers at? Like, I think there was one other, maybe two other people in the room. And I just thought, like, this is an underrepresented industry. My brain started thinking less about how many high school seniors can I help feel better about themselves? And I started to make room for how many photographers' lives can just really be impacted for the better just with this information.
I love that. And I kind of got emotional at the beginning when you started talking about that because when my mom gave up on photography and went to nursing school, it sent me this super clear message that you can't be successful following what you love. And
Mm.
creative work can only take you so far. That if I'm going to pursue what I love, I'm going to be poor. Helping them understand that they can be wealthy, that there is a way to do this, and helping them see that they can run that 4-minute mile because you've done it is so wonderful. And it's just going to carry on for generations and generations. So I'm really curious when you were standing up on that stage receiving that award, what were you thinking? Were you like, I'm going to create an educational program? Where did you go from there?
Yeah, so for somebody who has gotten a lot of reps in their business, in their service-based business, and they're like, "Dang, I've got this thing locked. Like, this is rinse and repeat year after year. I'm able to generate the same revenue." And you gain this sense of confidence. It's like, and now you're thinking, okay, people are coming to me, people are asking me questions about what I do with my business model and how much do you charge and how do you get your clients? And you're wanting to create almost like a room or like an incubator for those people to come learn from you and get those same results. My advice would be to get really, really good at managing your time. And if you haven't already on the service side of your business that you're about to kind of branch out from, really try to get that business as focused and as almost, I don't want to say like lean, but just very like tuned. Not that it's going to run automatic. Like I know, at least for me as a service provider, like I know I'm still going to be in that business doing the photography. But in order to be successful at your second venture, you do want to have confidence that when you walk away from it, you're going to be able to go kind of do this back and forth motion between the two. They say not to multitask, but really that's kind of what we're doing. We're looking from A to B to make sure that we can grow one and manage the other.
That is so helpful, and this is why I love this podcast and having these conversations so much because these are the kinds of details that so many people are thinking about, and where do you go to get answers like this? There's so many examples of people who are taking their expertise that they have in the real world and trying to teach others who are coming up behind them how to do the same, and it is this juggling act where they're wondering, "Where do I even start with trying to maintain my current business and what I do so well and create this educational platform?" How did you figure out what to teach people and how to actually help them?
Well, I think a big part of it is putting your quote unquote ear to the ground and just getting into conversations with people who are in need of help. I would be getting in conversations with these high school students and their parents. And then I would also be getting DMs from photographers who were like, "So, how exactly are you doing that?" And I would actually take notes. So, for years, even before I had anything to sell in terms of a program, I was like, okay, so and so asked me about this. I think I have like a folder of screenshots of people just being like, "Do you have a course on this? Do you do mentorship?" And at the time, it's like I had nothing to point them toward. So it was just a kind of accumulation of just realizing that when the same question starts to get asked like 3, 4, 5, 6 times, I'm like, okay, this is something that people are really wanting to know. So that's how I would say I kind of assessed what was the need. And then for a long time, listen, I've had a lot of those giant sticky note papers. There's been a lot of brainstorming and kind of playing around with what's the topic that people do want to hear about the most. And not only that, but like, what are the topics that I should leave alone? Because, for example, in photography, there's a lot of presets that are sold. There's a lot of editing courses. There's a lot of photography courses, like basics. And for a long time, I thought, gosh, there's a lot of courses I'm going to have to make because there's just a lot of topics on a lot of things. The initial reaction is to start where the beginner photographers might be. So they might need to learn how to use a camera. Am I going to be the one to teach them that? Or am I going to be the one that teaches them how to, once they already know how to use their camera, okay, now let's talk about how to get more bookings in your business. And then once you're there and you have more bookings, should I maybe just be the coach who's saying, listen, I know you're busy. I know you get a lot of bookings, but you're like, why am I not making as much money as I think I could be making? And be that coach at that level. So there's different tiers to where the person that you're serving is at in their journey. So I think it's really important to just get to know them very well. And of course, you're going to know better than anybody because you walked that path before them. But really being wise about not trying to be there for every single stage, but really like zone in on that one stage where it's like, I'm going to be the person that swoops in right when they hit that mark. And they're just going to think, that is exactly what I've been thinking. That is exactly what I've been struggling with. And you are the person that I want to take me to the next level, whatever that is.
You're so smart, and I'm truly curious, how did you know that? Because that is something that so many people struggle with. How did you know I'm not gonna teach A to Z? I need to teach W to Z or whatever it is.
I have a picture of me sitting on my floor just with all these papers around me because I was trying to just map it out. I wanted to be like, okay, can I be everything to everybody? And as I started to list out the different topics I wanted to start teaching on, there was one I actually went ahead and made all the slides for it. It was going to be all about like the client experience, but for whatever reason, I just didn't end up launching it because it didn't feel like it was going to have the impact that I wanted it to have. And it just didn't feel like it hit. I didn't think that photographers are going to see this and think this is exactly what I needed. And so, to be honest, I would love to say that I just had this like light bulb moment of why it was so important to wait. And I'm somebody who believes in divine timing. I think everything happens for a reason. And in that moment, looking back on that season, I was about to go into one of my busiest photography seasons ever. So I think what was really more important for me then was getting those additional reps in and just becoming like an absolute expert at delivering a photography experience for clients. The way I look at it now is like, I'm not the best person to teach you how to use your camera, to be honest with you. I never took a photography class, I'm self taught. But there are a lot of photographers who are really good at teaching that, and I might not be the one to teach you, but this person, go take this course, get really good at using your camera, get your reps in, and meet me here when you're ready. I think that that is not only the best case scenario for you as the educator, as the coach, it's also the best case scenario for the person that you're training, because they need to get those skills before, in order to get success with the program that you're teaching.
I went through a similar process where I was like, people need to know how to make videos and be confident on camera. And so I mapped out a whole course for it. I even pre launched it and had a waiting list and everything. And I never created it because I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like the thing I'm supposed to be doing.
One statistic that I heard, or I don't even know if you would call it a stat, but it says that a lightning bolt is no wider than the width of a thumb, but as it strikes the ground, it is hotter than the sun. That is seriously such a testament to how powerful and how concentrated and how deep and electric your energy can be when you just go to a really small surface area. I talk to my students all the time about how you will go so much deeper with one person than you might with trying to do multiple things for multiple different parties.
I was just reading Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing, this morning,
Mhm.
which is a book that I go back to anytime I just need centering on my business. And in that book is where he talks about the smallest viable audience for your business. I love thinking about who are the 1,000 people who I could really impact.
My coach told me at one point that I want you to focus on the 90 days that are in front of you. She gave me encouragement and said, there may very well be a day where all the stuff you're doing in this specific industry is setting you up for a different jump off point. And when that is ready to come to you, it will come to you. But for now, if it's not right there in front of you, then guess what? 90 days forward, 90 days forward, 90 days reassess. And I was like, thank you. That is what I needed to hear, because in my mind, I'm thinking, am I going to be in the photography industry forever? And you're really starting to think 12 steps ahead of you. But when you look at the quarter ahead, the next 90 days, it's like, well, in the next 90 days, one thing I know for sure is like, I'm in the photography industry and I'm in this world, and that's where I'm going to put my best foot forward every single day.
I love that advice because so many people do need to just look at where they are, look at where you're planted, look at the lane that you're in. You get to shift gears, but you have to give it an actual shot first. It seems like you've done so much great work on your mindset. Are there any limiting beliefs or mindset shifts that you've had to make this leap?
I had a big hurdle that I had to get over, which was the audience shift. Before I was trying to, get people booked, get them on my schedule, get them in my calendar, book me, book me, book me. I have this many spots left. It was suddenly like, now I'm creating messaging that is talking about booking those exact clients. So let's take money, for example. I would normally not, be out here saying like, look how much money you can make by being a photographer. And now like that audience, I'm going to be posting stories and content that's like, this is how much money I made. I really was like, wait, am I going to go out here and start quote unquote bragging about what I had just generated the year before and booking 4-figure clients and making a multi 6-figure year? And I had to work with multiple people, and I'm talking therapy, I'm talking mind coaches, I'm talking business coaches, to really just say like, let's notice that you use the word brag. Okay, so like let's just start there. So it really was saying like, okay, as I transition, what can I stop believing and what can I start? So what I stopped believing was that, I was responsible for the way that other people perceived me, first of all. What I started believing was that moving into education was going to create the greatest impact, the greatest amount of benefit for the largest number of people.
I get hung up in the educational space because there's so much that people need to do to get the results that you have achieved, right? So with photographers, it's like, yes, I have made this much and this is possible. I ran that 4-minute mile, but I had to train. I had to have a really good coach. I had to, build up my skills for this amount of time. So how do
Mhm.
you kind of balance that tension? Because I know that so many people feel that. They're like, I can't guarantee the result.
As a coach, I do feel responsible to say, I'm going to give you as much detailed information, as much feedback, as much circumstantial evidence, and like, well, if option A happens, here's what you're going to do, and it might be that option B happens, so in that case you're going to do this. That's where I feel like I can do
Mhm.
the greatest job as a coach, where the student really needs to, believe in themselves enough, is to say that they have the capability to put those skills into action quickly, And without a sense of perfection and without a sense of
Mhm.
mastery in the beginning, and know that you are taking a risk, those types of people will succeed.
I'm curious to know how the shift from being a photographer to coaching has felt for you, and how do you balance all of those different identities?
The balance has been the part that I am working on. I will be honest, this is definitely a season of growth for me, but what I feel so confident in saying is that I know exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I keep that compelling reason at the forefront of why I get up every day and do as much as I do. My husband and I are like Survivor fanatics. There's like 40 something seasons now. My birthday party last year was Survivor themed. I had a full size cardboard cutout of Jeff Probst present at the party. Okay. And I had my dad dress up as Jeff to be the host for the party. It was seriously the best thing ever. Anyways, so those who watch Survivor will know that in the finale, to earn your spot, earn that last spot in the final tribal council, as they call it, you have to make a fire. And you're basically going head to head. And you have Kindle, you have Flint, and you have a rope that's about 3 feet up where you have to build a flame and burn that rope. And when we were watching the finale recently, I literally turned to my husband and I was like, this is how I feel running these two different ventures. It's like, yeah, in the show, there's two people, one on each fire. I feel like I'm going from A, which is the current business that's just doing well. It's a big old fire, but I got to manage that one because otherwise we're going to set everything off. And then we've got fire B, which is non existent, right? At the beginning. And you just kind of put those little twigs up, get that flame going. And I feel as though I'm just running back and forth. Like I'm blowing oxygen on the small one, then I'm walking over and I'm putting a little bit of water on the big one. That is how balancing it feels to me. And switching the identity from being somebody who's a service provider and somebody who is able to create change in the lives of other artists and business owners has been very rewarding to say the least. Like if a client comes to me, a student comes to me and says, oh my gosh, like I just made my first 4-figure sale. I didn't even know that was possible. And you can just like hear that, like just disbelief in their voice. And when I tell you, like the first time I ever heard that, it just transported me back to everything we've talked about, the snack room, the first sale that I ever had. I think I went numb. Like I'm not kidding. I just didn't know what was possible. It's a proof of concept. Your client buys, they pay you 4 figures, they tip you hundreds of dollars, and you're just like, wait, what? And then your brain goes into calculator mode. I mean, at least for me. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So 4-figure sale, this many hours that I spent with that client, this much profit. If I do that this many times a week by this many months, and oh my gosh, like this is going to change everything. It's just this like unfolding of a different path in front of you than you were currently imagining for yourself. And that's the power of good information. Just to be able to play a small part in that, I mean, to say it's rewarding is an understatement. You mentioned generational impact. I want their kids to experience peace and experience growth, whatever that looks like for them, simply because this financial freedom and this time freedom became a real possibility for them.
You're like, "Wow, I did it, but now I've taught someone else how to do it." It's just the best feeling in the world. How important is being coached yourself and being in a coaching container to being able to do the work that you do now?
The number one word that I would use to describe being coached, even while I'm coaching, is just energizing. Instead of the water being still, it's like it's the water is moving. It's on a still pond. It's like waves and things are just crashing around. It's almost like I teach in one of my programs marketing as that same kind of analogy. It's like every time you host an event or you do this like ambassador kind of photo shoot, you're basically throwing a stone into a still pond and you're just creating all these ripples, creating all this movement. That kind of movement is so important. I was in rooms with people where I said like, you did what in a month? Being exposed to that has been very energizing. And I believe it trickles down. So when you have a coach, the things that you learn from them, it's like it changes you and it changes the way that you're seeing things and your mind. And then that's going to turn around and change the way that you interact with people that you coach or even the people you serve in your business. Like so many things that I've learned through coaching, I actually am like, wait, this would work really well for my photography clients too. And then you just realize how kind of full circle and connected everything is. You really don't want to be stagnant for too long because that is when your mind kind of starts to potentially tell you stories that just aren't true, just simply because there hasn't been a lot of movement happening.
You mentioned getting questions from people about what you were doing. What were you putting online and what were you sharing from your journey that was causing people to be curious about your photography business? How much of your journey have you shared along the way, and how do you think that's impacted where you are now?
I've tried, especially over the last 1 or 2 years, to really give a glimpse into what happens before the final product is shared. And this is specifically something that reigns true in photography because if you think about it, Instagram used to be photos, right? And so for a photographer, growing on Instagram was this gorgeous experience because unlike a lot of industries, you have content that you are pumping out constantly. You have all these galleries that you're loading. You're like, what should I post today? Maybe I should post twice. And it was very catered to photography, which was amazing. So you would really focus on posting the final product. With the introduction of stories and video, then it was like, okay, there has to be more than just posting these pictures. So what I started to do was document the photo shoots and all of the before, durings, and afters before you had even laid eyes on the final product. So I just tried to sort of train myself to be like, oh, I should pick up my camera.
By documenting your process, you showed people not only what it's like to work with you, but what it's like to be you. And so people are like, I want to pack my bags like her at like 1 o'clock and go to a photo shoot. I don't want to be sitting at my desk here. So now you have this whole other business that's grown out of it because you took the time to share your journey. That is why storytelling is number one. It just leads you from place to place to place if you
Mhm.
have the courage to follow it. It's so clear that you have the best framework for photographers. And I'm just so excited that you're sharing it with people. Like you see the value in it and you see the need for it, and you're actually taking the steps to give it to other people. Thank you so much. I hope you found this conversation helpful. If you're a photographer who wants to shoot less and make more money in 2025, follow Jenna at Jen Renpro or at JRP University. On her page, you'll see all of the information that you need to join the next Shoot Less, Make More challenge, which is where you can learn even more of Jenna's method to build a profitable and sustainable photography business. If you like this episode, please give it a 5-star review on Spotify. It's the easiest way to help spread the word about this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell notification so that you never miss an episode. Regardless of where you're watching or listening, let me know what you took away from Jenna's experience in the photography industry and how you can apply it to your own business. If you have questions, don't hesitate to send me a DM on Instagram at ashley.renders. I would love to keep the conversation going. I'll see you again next Friday. Have a great week.